what they do specifically with their children? Was there, I don't know, story time, prayer time, or different, or anything that you implemented that we can learn from, and maybe how you applied God to your life and your children's lives?
No, we were just happy to get them. We were just happy to get them into bed and shut the light off.
I think we prayed with them. We made sure that we went to church every Sunday. We had them in a parochial school. Not that that's for everybody, but it was reinforcing what we were trying to teach them at home, so that everywhere they went, they were getting the same. They weren't getting conflicting input that would confuse them. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think at Christmas time we had a birthday cake for Jesus, and we had story time, and we prayed with them every night. And I don't know.
Will you share about your joy box?
Yeah, we had a joy box, and I don't know when we started that, but early on, and all through the year, anytime there was something that happened that brought us joy, we would write it down and put it in this joy box.
Let me explain the joy box. It's just a physical box, and it has like a ballot type slit on the top of it.
It was an Adidas shoe box for many years.
For many years. It's an Adidas shoe box with tape on it. So, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so then on Christmas Eve, we would get the joy box out, and we would all go through all the joys that happened throughout the year.
We'd open it up, we'd pass the joy box around, and everyone would read one of the joys.
Just to sort of, I thought it was a really nice way to affirm the boys, and just to let them see what joy they would bring to us.
And when all the kids got married, we made a joy box for them. We actually went to Hobby Lobby and bought a professional-looking balsa wood box, cut the ballot type slit in the top of it, and decorated it. And hopefully they did for a while.
You got it at a rehearsal dinner.
Yeah, it's the type of thing there where, as 20-somethings, when we're sitting around as a family on Christmas Eve, trying to go through, and it's just taking a while, and there's so many pieces of paper in here, and you grumble and you complain through the process, but at the end of the day, it really means something to you, and just being able to look back on that, like it's a nice time for a family to get around and share joys with each other. But it was also a tradition where we would grumble and complain about it while we did it. But yeah, that was a cool thing that we did.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be anything, grand and momentous. It can just be, just
it usually wasn't.
Just something small.
Yeah, small joy.
Tell us some of your strengths or successes while your kids were in their 20s. Share some stories or strengths in your parenting process during that time.
Well, I'll say from a mother's point of view, it was very hard to let them go. But I think we did. I think we did it. But I can remember dropping dropping the kids off at college, and just crying all the way home. But it was just all part of the process, and it's. If you do your job well, that's what the outcome is that they leave you, which is, makes you kind of obsolete, and that's a struggle, as a mother to figure out a new you. But I think we did that okay. It wasn't easy, but I think we did it.
And the fact that Justin stayed there at school and didn't come home, that was a success.
Right here, Dale, I don't remember.
But just to watch them grow, when we talk of 20-somethings, it's not just the early 20s and the college years, it's all the way up through 29. And I think with Justin, you know, we've seen them make a positive transition from childhood, boyhood to manhood. Sometimes you have to just, you know, leave them alone, let them figure it out. But in most cases, he does. He still doesn't know how to use a screwdriver, but in other situations, he's figured it out. So that's a success.
I think too, when they're making good choices, it's much easier to let them go because you're not so afraid that they're going to make a bad choice that's going to have consequences, big consequences. When they're making poor choices, I think it's harder to let them go. And with Justin and his older brother, they made great choices, and it was much easier. The one that we struggled with, it was harder because you just were in fear of what kind of consequence was going to happen.
In fact, we feared drastic consequences. There were times that we just were beside ourselves.
And some of them happened.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. So, you mentioned praying, and I'm assuming that you have been praying with them, or praying for them since they were little. How did you specifically pray for them in their 20s, and how did their 20s impact your prayer life?
I think I specifically prayed for protection during those years. You know, you transition from having them all in their bed at night, and you know that everybody's safe and sound, to now you don't know where they are, what they're doing. So I know I just prayed for protection a lot, and that they would make good choices.
And I think when they hit that age, I think both of us really started to concentrate on their future spouse and praying for that God would intervene there and you know, we prayed for a believer, a Christian woman to come into their lives, and boy, we got a winner there. So prayer answered.
So, like you mentioned before, when they are in their 20s or off to college, you know, you have them in the house, you're taking care of them. But when they go into their 20s, and how did that affect your relationship with them?
With the boys, you mean?
Yeah.
Or with
How
each
did
other?
it? Not affect. I'm sorry. How did it change your relationship when they were in your 20s, and what did you do to pursue the relationship, but not? You know, like you said, you have to let them be them at the same
We
time.
had to kind of back off a little bit. I'm a by nature a solutions guy, a problem solver. You know, a dad who fix everything, and but you just kind of have to let go and not be in their business, as they say, to a certain degree.
It's hard, that transition from having a relationship with your children as parent-child to adult is a transition, and it has to be done intentionally. And there are many times when we had epic fails because it's hard to do. But with time, I think it all. And there's still times, I'm sure, that you feel like we're still treating you like you're a kid. It's just a hard thing it's a hard thing to.
And with this kind of goes back to what Deb had said earlier. With our third one, you know, they didn't launch as well, and he was still getting in trouble. So I found myself, you know, he would probably say nagging, but I would just bring up topics like, "Have you found a job yet?" You know, those types of things. And that really divided more, I think. He just didn't want to hear it, especially from me. He had to figure that out on his own. And so, to a certain degree, it's,
Would you have done it differently?
That, you know, I've wrestled with that question over and over and over for years. And I would like to think I would, but who knows? I'm still the same kind of guy. I'm still the dad. I'm still the fix-it guy, the solutions guy. I want to help, and obviously I want to see my, you know, my children successful. So would I tell him to go out and get a job? You know,
I guess what I mean, do you think that would have changed your relationship a little bit more if you would have done it differently?
maybe. You know, it's a two-way street too. They have to want to change with that as well and grow into the role of adult.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't. If we could have done things differently, I think we maybe would have, but I'm not sure that the outcome would have been any different.
And when he was a little bit younger than 20s, and he was starting this, or in the full throes of the you know, being out there, you know, I thought, well, let me try a tough love thing. You know, maybe that'll work. And I think that didn't work at all. That just made the divide even deeper. So I think we should have shown the love unconditionally, you know, like what we're taught, instead of I don't know, instead of going that route. But who knows?
You guys, can you guys just share a little bit about the whole story with John? So there's some context into what we're talking about.
Well, our third son, John, the youngest, of course, and he's, please don't go away from this meeting thinking that he's a terrible person or a terrible kid. He wasn't. He was a loving, fun-loving kid, just kind of the class clown kind of guy. Marched to his own drum. You know, when we thought it was best to do it this way, he'd go off and do it that way. Consequently, he just didn't want to take on the same roles that everyone else in the family had taken, and that eventually led to a real disconnect, I think, with school, with his classes, with his teachers, with the church family that had been around him all those years. And yeah, he got into some drugs, and he got in, you know, he went to jail a couple of times, no prison or anything, but and it just took him a long time to mature and come around. To this day, he's still a fun-loving kid, and you know, when he's there with us, it's just, you know, it's great, and you know, we love having him. But we just know that you know, things just aren't quite right still.
Well, at this stage, he thinks he's an atheist, so he's really turned completely from God.
And that has me boggled too, my mind boggled, you know,
So,
because he knows the truth. He's just choosing to not live that way right now.
but as a family, we are all just loving him.
Yeah. We decided not to go the tough love route.
We're not shunning him. We're loving him. We're going to just show him the love of Jesus till you can't deny it.
Yeah, so one of the things I look at when I see my parents and all of us is, you know, you can do things one way and it can seemingly be the right way, and you're doing things, you know, the same as you are with your other children, but it just doesn't always work out the same. And I think as parents, you know, we have 3 kids ourselves, and one, you know, it's a little bit different with each one. But as parents, I think it's important not to let Satan tell us that we're bad parents or we're doing a bad job because one of our kids is going a different direction. I think once we start feeling bad for ourselves and thinking we're terrible, we're letting the enemy really get to us and really win those battles. And sometimes it takes everybody a different route and a different path to go to ultimately find the truth. And as parents, I know they pray constantly pray for my little brother. And eventually we believe that he will come back to God, and the family will sort of be reunited again. But it's a great example of raising your kids up, and you never know, something can go this way or that way, but it doesn't mean anything for you as parents. It's just that's kind of how it is. And I know they've struggled a lot with thinking, you know, maybe they messed up, or, you know, what did we get wrong with this or that. And that's just a thought I think we all need to get out of our heads and understand that that's Satan trying to put those thoughts in us. So I'm glad you guys shared a little bit about
And each yes, sir.
How did you guys stay united when you guys were going? I mean, when you were in the midst of this situation, and I know you love your children dearly, and obviously when you have this impact on your family, it can put a wedge between a married couple. How did you guys stay united, stay the course, and did not let the situation affect you guys? Because, I mean, obviously, you guys are each other's support system, along with, you know, God and Jesus. But how did you guys stay just connected together during that time?
Well, I think, you know, we're totally devoted to one another, and we love each other, and that solidifies that cement, that bond of marriage.
Well, I do think those were some of our hardest days, because you know, my approach was, you know, I just wanted to love on him, and I could be adding to the problem with my, you know, oh, you need $20, okay, you know, you know, that kind of thing. I'd be like, oh, you know, he's sincere, and, you know, I mean, I was always kind of in his, and Kevin would be harder about it, and I would be softer about it. And, but we would come together, and we would find some place in the middle, and I don't know that, he probably knew there was some division there, but I think when it came right down to it, we tried to be in the same place, by a little bit of compromise each way. Kevin would back off a little bit, and I would get a little tougher, and we'd find a place in the middle. But, and we would make time for us. We made sure that we had weekends away, that we have a boat that we would go to, and we would be out on the lake, and we would get in the boat, and we'd go, okay, for an hour, we are not going to talk about John. So we'd be out there, and in about 30 minutes, something would come up in our minds, we got to start over. But we would try to just focus in on each other intentionally.
And it does have a way of taking over your mind and your heart and your soul. It zaps you of strength, but you just lean on each other, and you have each other for support. And your faith. And your faith. Just
prayed, and you know, that's what I was going back to. Luckily, when things got really bad, Justin and Nathan were kind of all out of the house. You were maybe your senior year, things started really turning. Jen was a sophomore. But so we didn't feel like we were being torn, but I always felt like anytime Justin had some major accomplishment,
and there were many,
John would do something to garner negative attention, you know, so we would just like, oh, and you know, you felt that. But, so just trying not to let it take over your family is really hard.
Yeah. And I don't want this to we don't view it like, you mentioned the word failure, and I don't want you to think that's the way it's viewed at all. I just think it's an encouragement for us, because I know it'll be on different degrees that we experience that rebellious child, but even on the smallest degree, it's helpful to have another couple to model our prayer life after, and the patience, and just what I've seen of your love for John through this, and just your love and devotion that you give your son, even through the times I've seen his challenges, you know, has just been just very strong. And like Justin said, we don't get to choose the way our kids go, but we get to choose how we respond to it, and you guys are a good example.
Well, there's a bigger picture here. There's a, we're trying to show him the love of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not just our love. We've got eternal consequences. So, you have to put aside how he's making you feel and just realize that you need to be focused in on showing him love so that he sees Jesus' love.
And remember that each child that's born is an individual. None of them are exactly alike. Each one is born into a different family. If you think about that, different set of circumstances, and they're going to be different. And it's how we respond.
So, do we have any other questions that anyone has?
Yes, sir.
Just got, let's throw it out there. I got 3 kids. They're 2 years apart also. It seems like they're much younger. They're 4, 6, and 8. So it could be totally different. But it just seems like the younger one is the most challenged. I'm starting to see these signs of, I know sometimes my mind curious, maybe it's a disconnect or something. But I'm just thinking out loud a little bit. Could it be that they're, to some extent, like, the firstborn is doing all these new things and growing, secondborn's kind of the same, and the thirdborn, is he getting overshadowed by the older siblings, and maybe he feels that more than we see it? Is
I think you're
really
on
cognizant of?
Yeah.
I think that, and we see situations all the time that we kind of relate that same thing to. Just yesterday we were down in Indianapolis with our oldest son, and we were at a football game for their son, and then later in the afternoon we were at a soccer game for the middle daughter, and then we asked Evie, the little one, she says, "Now, are you excited to be playing, soccer or, doing something?" She says, "No, you just go out there and kick a ball around."
Wow,
So
I want to do that.
already she's trying to
Find her own
way.
Right.
And I thought about that too, that maybe we tried to put him in a box that he didn't quite fit into. That could be one of our failures. Just wanting him to be into sports and things. Justin and Nathan were in all kinds of sports and did everything excellently, academically. Everything they did, they succeeded at it. And then here he comes along, and where am I gonna shine? Well, I can shine at being the bad boy. I really sometimes felt that, but I didn't know how to change it.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do exactly.
Yeah, I think maybe what I would have, although we encouraged him, he was a little more creative. We encouraged him with art classes and, different things. We tried to find something for him. And nothing really grabbed hold. But we were cognizant of that, and we thought about that very exact same thing. And tried to, we never compared him or made him feel like he had to do everything as well as his brothers, but I don't know.
So you didn't do that, but I wonder if he's doing that on his own.
Exactly. I think they do.
Yeah, and I think it kind of ties into last week with Joe and Steph is trying to place our kids' true identity in Christ, and what can we do as parents to constantly remind them of who they are? Because as kids, we're going to compare ourselves to my sibling 2 years older, or my sibling 2 years younger, or the kid down the street, or this popular person in school, right? So as parents, it's, our kids' identity needs to be placed firmly in Christ, and they need to know that they're loved for who they are, not for what they can do. And it goes for all different kids too. So even the successful kid, I would struggle with, I was an athlete, and that's who I was, and so after high school and after college, when I wasn't playing sports anymore, I was like, who am I? Where is my identity? And as kids grow up, we just need to constantly reiterate that they are loved for who they are. Just keep enforcing that identity. And Clinton and Tanya said something too about bringing your kids up with other spiritual fathers other than your own father, you know, or who are these other people in our life, in our sphere of influence that can help talk to our kids too, because I know, like for John and Dad, it was, this is my dad, and he's gonna say no matter what, and I'm gonna rebel against him no matter what he says. So who's the other person that can come alongside and speak some truth into John's life? Because sometimes there's always going to be an odds between the dad and the son, just based on sheer rebellion. So yeah, just sort of making sure as we grow up and as our kids get older, you know, let's try to be a community and seek out those families that can invest into our kids too. Yeah.
I'm the third of all the same gender too, and I found my oldest sister was the musician and athlete. She was great at all that. My second sister was brilliant. I mean, great. So I decided to be the fun one. And I didn't rebel too much. I mean, I did a little bit, but not, you know. I tried to be an athlete. I was decent, but I wasn't great, you know. So I just kind of decided to be the fun one. But I think one thing that helped my parents help me, and I fall into this trap too, is when I started comparing myself to my sisters and stuff, my mom really tried not to compare herself to other people, because I see myself comparing myself to other parents, and I was good as a homeschool mom, and I doing a good enough job doing this, and I start comparing, and then my kids hear me doing that, and so they start comparing themselves to other people. And so I think if we can watch what we're doing, because like you said, lead by example, you know, really watch our language and how we compare ourselves to other parents might help our kids not compare themselves to other people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
That's a really good point. A lot of thought for me. I feel like that will have to go into that, because I haven't thought of that. Like, what am I saying that might affect my kids that way? So thanks for sharing that.
Well, and I think that's also, like, you know, we've said multiple times, you know, who are we going to help us influence our kids or be there for our kids, those other parents. Well, and I think as parents, you need, who's going to hold me accountable to, you know, you're not failing as a mom just because your daughter is mouthing off at this moment or your son's going this way. You're doing everything you can, and we're walking this with you. We're going to pray. We're going to take this battle with you. You're not failing. You're not, you know, how can we help? And also hold you accountable with, you know, you're not, you know, Sarah, you're not Tanya. Your personality's different, so the situation's going to be different. But you can take wisdom from Tanya or ask for advice and then go from there. So I think, you know, not only who are you going to have in your life for your kids, but who is going to help you with your spouse. You know, I don't think you're loving your man the way you should be, because you're not talking to him like with respect, even though you're mad at him. You know, hold that accountability, hold that with your kids, your marriage, job. And I think that's a lot of parents, you know, Mike and I, we kind of in the past have isolated ourselves because our marriage is ugly right now, so we're isolating ourselves. We shouldn't be, because we need that extra help and we need that love and support. And we've learned that now and we're better with it now, but you know, I think that's where you need to be having those people who are going to, like, you're icing me out, but we're coming in anyway, with or without the key, with or without the invite.
Yeah, that's a good point. To have that
I don't think it's ugly now. It was ugly.
Ugly then, yeah, no, it's good now. Sorry, babe. No, it's good now. It was ugly a while ago.
I'm coming in with my Mikey.
No, I mean, I'll go back on that. I mean, in a way of it too, it's like, I mean, we couldn't help each other until we helped ourselves. But I mean, at that point too, it's like when we actually come together and we're doing what we think this is how God wanted everything to be. And I mean, even going back to just raising kids, I mean, we were both raised differently, and I mean, coming together on the same page and finding that common ground is probably where, I mean, that's where I'd have to say that was the ugly part, is we were raised differently. But I mean, coming together.
Polar opposites. You can, as opposite as opposites can get, and we clashed on everything.
I I mean, every little thing that we talk about in these groups, I mean, we get a lot out of it. And I mean, even after that group is coming together and just a little time, it's like out of nowhere, just affirming each other that, you know, we're doing what we can do. And I mean, thank you again for your guys' time. Because I mean, again, 5 hours from now, it's going to be like that little bit of information. That little bit of information will be like, how does that pertain to me? So I mean, everything. Thank you.
So the other question I had for you guys was, what kind of scripture, or you know, what was something that you would go to, or a verse, or a teaching that helped you guys the most during your time as parents? You could share any thoughts on that, or that wasn't on my list. So if you want to take a pass, that's fine.
Well, go ahead.
No.
I have one that I had written down here when he did. Our pastor at Blackhawk was Russell Moore. I don't know if any of you knew him. But he was, a lot of people didn't care for him, but I loved his teaching, and I would write down everything he said. And one time he was talking about fathering, but I think this is a note that goes along for parenting as well. One time, this is 3 truths on fathering or / parenting. Number 1, we receive our children as a gift of God's grace, so they're just a gift. Number 2, we are to teach and model biblical truth to our children. And then the third thing is release our children back to God. So those are, I've referred to that many times and have thought about that, and that's what I keep referring to.
Can you say those one more time?
Sure. We receive our children as a gift of God's grace.
Okay.
Number 2, we are to teach and model biblical truth to our children. And number 3, we are to release our children back to God.
How do you release your child back to God?
He's all yours, God. I'm out of here.
I used to say that when we were having trouble with John, I would give him to God, and then I just keep taking him back. And I would actually, put my hands out, so I had a visual. Here, take him. He's yours. And then I just kept taking him back, and putting the burden back on me. It's hard to do that. I think it takes a daily renewing of your mind, just keep doing that.
Anybody else have any questions? Other questions?
I don't know if you guys answer this individually, but what has been the most challenging time as parents, and what has been the most rewarding time period? Like when they're little, when they're in high school, now, like individually, what your perspective is on that. What has been the most challenging time period that you see, and then what has been the most rewarding time period or moment or whatever?
Well, again, the challenging times were when we had to go through all this with John and seeing him not learning from, going to jail and coming out and thinking, okay, he's got it. No, he doesn't. And then trying to keep the whole family cohesive through all that. That was probably the most challenging, although having 3 children under 4 was challenging too in those early years when they all needed you for every living thing, Probably the most rewarding time.
We're still waiting on that.
No, I have many. I'm trying to pick a I'm going to pick a few. I loved when Nathan and Justin were in high school, and we were going to ball games, and kids were at our house, and the house was full of laughter and fun, and everything. It was just fun. Those were just some of my favorite years before all the trouble started. It's also very rewarding when you see them, find their mate and you love them and they're good Christian women and you see them start a family. Also, when you see them parenting and you see that what good dads they are, and I'm just like, wow, those are the rewards. Those are really good things when you can see that they turned out to be really nice men.
I can remember Justin sitting in the back seat of the car, and I'd be driving around. We'd be at a traffic light or something. I'd look in my rearview mirror and see him, and I'd wave at him like this. And I kept waving until he would finally wave, and then I'd do this hand and wait until he finally waved, and then I'd go like this. He'd have to go like that. And it used to drive him nuts. But we were in traffic some time back, and they were in the car behind us at a traffic light, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and there's Justin going. So that was so rewarding. Challenging times for me. Well, there's challenges along the way, but whenever Justin had disappointment, that was tough for me to handle too. Anything from not making the All-Star team in Little League to
that ever happened?
just once. We had to talk about that. And you probably know Justin and Angie lost a child a few years back, and that was a tough time. But then at the same time, to see him come through all those disappointments and all those hurts, and see him here leading a class on Sunday morning at his church, doesn't get much better than that.
Do we have Kleenex?
We did it.
About the last question before he started to get emotional.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So it's 11:40. I didn't have any group questions, but if we want to just break up into groups right now, and what I thought we could just sort of talk about as a group in the little bit of time that we have left, are just what are some things that we can do now, at whatever age our children are in, to set the stage for when they are out of the house. So how do you want your relationship to be with your kids when they are moving on and moving out? I know, like with them, it was sort of a transition between parenting and then all of a sudden we were friends. And I think that's what every parent, I think wants. And I know that's what we would want when our kids get older. So what are some things you can do now sort of in the current stage, and how are you with your kids at your current stage, thinking about into the future as far as that, wanting to be the way the relationship looks. So that's it, and if we can thank my parents for coming in, that was so cool.